Describe the three most common approaches that a divorce case will take. Okay? Just from doing family law, from being involved with divorce matters now for more than 15 years, I have come to see basically that divorce matters tend to fall on three different tracks, and there's quite a bit of difference even within each track. But these three tracks are very useful for you to know in terms of likely sort of path that your case will take. Ready? So I'm going to talk about the three in terms of what they look like and give you a bit of an educated estimate on how long your case takes depending on which track you're on. Okay, ready? First track, uncontested divorce. Now, there's another FAQ video up on our website and our YouTube channel, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. If you want a real deep dive on what an uncontested divorce looks like, check out that FAQ video. But by way of a brief explanation of an uncontested divorce, it's going to be your fastest, easiest, and sort of cheapest resolution to a divorce. In essence, you are agreeing to everything really before you're putting your case into court. You're going to court one time, case over, and literally an uncontested divorce can be a 1 to 3 month process from start to finish. Okay, so that is sort of approach number one, and a lot more common, I think, than the average person thinks about, or what maybe the average perception is on the street. In my experience, it's probably 20% of our cases. Okay, approach number two, I'm going to call in court low conflict. Okay, so you have a case that's in court, but I would say it's in court for purposes of general court oversight. It's in court for need to enforce. It's in court for purpose of having some deadlines rather than just kind of letting things sit there. But I would say there's general agreement and cooperation happening. In court, low conflict, to me, that sort of a divorce is sort of a 6 month to a year process, and a very, very common. I would say of the three I'm going to discuss, in court low conflict is actually the most common scenario that a divorce case would take. What's an example, or what are a couple examples of in court low conflict? One would just be maybe you wanted your case to be uncontested, but the other party was slow in getting signed documents back to you, or being a bit uncooperative. I see this one semi-often. And then it's like, hey, we need to get this thing going. We need to create some urgency. So then maybe we're going to serve somebody to create a court deadline, to put a little, frankly, a deadline on that person to take some action. Sometimes that makes the case, get going really quickly, because once you've gotten served, you have 30 days to participate, or you're not going to have any input in this case at all. That's one reason, would be deadlines. Another reason might be simply to require some financial exchange and some financial investigation. Maybe there's underlying agreement about going forward with a divorce, and sort of general trust. However, there needs to be some updated and some disclosure of, investment portfolios, different business accounts. Maybe you're not involved with your spouse's small business or something to that effect. To just get everybody's cards on the table so we know what's what. So sometimes it's a need to create some urgency and deadlines. Sometimes it's a need to just exchange some financials to double check some of the numbers if you're not involved that much, perhaps with your family finances or a small business. Um, and then oftentimes, the in-court sort of low conflict situation is simply there's a lot of agreement on, let's just say, a divorce. Maybe there's agreement on custody of the kids. Maybe there's a general agreement on, who knows, selling a house or something. But maybe there's a little disagreement on what should the child support amount be? What should a spousal support amount be? And maybe you just need a judge to weigh in on one, two, three big issues, but probably not in a big contested hearing kind of way, but just by way of sort of a settlement conference. Hey, judge, we're 75% of the way there, but will you help us cross the finish line and weigh in on two or three things? So that those are some general reasons why and pictures of a case that's in court, low conflict. And to repeat, that's generally a 6 month to 1 year type of a timeline. Okay, so we talked about path number one, uncontested divorce, path number two, in court, low conflict, and then just your final sort of typical path a case is going to take, in court, high conflict. Okay, even though the movies probably make you think this is the most common path, the truth of the matter is this is the least common of the three. And my most recent data on this point is this is really only about 5% of cases. So it's rare, but 5% still 5%. Now, in my experience, what is an in-court high conflict case look like? To be very candid, this third path I'm talking about really, in substance, looks a lot like the second path. You're talking about needing deadline. You're talking about financial disclosure. You're talking about judges needing to weigh in on some issues. However, when you're in this box, in my experience, basically, there's no trust, there's no cooperation, and really at a macro level, what I see is a lot of times at this stage, you're talking about people, sadly, who are really beyond almost thinking about their own best interests and are more concerned with hurting their spouse or soon to be ex-spouse. It's kind of that emotional play that's now involved that makes the case extremely high conflict and in court a ton because since there's no cooperation and since there's no trust, you're not able to do stuff in a cooperative manner at all. Basically, everything is put on the lap of the judge to weigh in on and make decisions on. And when that's needed, it's a slow, multiple year process. So that's the in court high conflict. And I mean, just thinking of a case of ours, I mean, here's an example. One of my longest cases of my career. Issues were simple. Ultimate resolution of the case was simple, or let's just say obvious. There were children and there were assets. It wasn't the easiest case possible. However, there was adultery and unfaithfulness during the course of the marriage. So that vengeance on part of one of the spouses against the unfaithful spouse was so much anger, that, again, this is where it simply got to be a situation where the goal was to hurt his ex-wife using whatever tactics possible, and therefore you had an extremely contentious divorce that took several years. So those are the three common approaches to a divorce case. You need to know those up front. Can yours be an uncontested divorce? Does yours need to be in court, but in a sort of a low conflict, minimal judge court involvement situation? Or is it a situation where there's no trust and no ability to cooperate, and therefore you need to be in court and it's going to be active in